morning. I'm so pleased to be here, and I'm glad that you could all make it. I wanted to start out with a quote that's very familiar to the TED audiences: to be the change that you want to see in the world. This is a motto that I like to live my own life by, and it's one that's not maybe particularly subscribed to the small company that I work for out in Redmond, Washington. But I'll let you decide that for yourself at the end of my talk. So I actually work in Microsoft Research, which is a core computer science lab that's been around for 20 years. In fact, this fall in September, we will celebrate our 21st birthday and be able to be legal drinking age. So the reason we've been successful for so long, and we are actually one of the last computer science labs available, is because we've stuck very closely to our core tenets. These are the original tenets that we had when we established the lab, and they are still the core tenets that we work against today. The second one seemed very obvious. So for instance, the second one is about publish or perish, and inside of Microsoft Research, we've been likened very close to the universal situation where it's publish or perish. But in addition to that, the last one is to make sure that we tech transfer products, technologies into products. So for instance, the things that power the Connect actually came out of Microsoft Research, and that's a very important part of what we do. It's the top bullet that I want to draw your attention today, and it is going to be the focus of my talk. And that is to bring computer science to bear on some of the world's most pressing issues. That's about your health, it's about the world's health and climate change, and the difficulties in dealing with big data and scientific discovery. So that's where I'm largely going to be focusing today. So we have labs all over the world. There are over 900 researchers inside of Microsoft Research worldwide, and as you can see, they're all over the map. There is a dot missing. We just opened a lab last week in New York City, and that's run by Jennifer Shays, one of the most brilliant computer scientists that I've ever met in my life. So where I fit into this is I'm one of these people that bridges a gap. We cannot hire all the smart people in the world. We'd love to, but we can't. So what we'd like to do instead is collaborate with the outside world. Bring that knowledge in, work with them closely, and develop more interesting technologies, advance science more quickly by working together with the research community. And what we do is we kind of turn that wheel that accelerates the research that we do in Microsoft Research, which then in turn goes back to those two other principles, tech transfer, and also advancing the state of the art. One of the big things that people don't know about my team is we're very much involved in open data, open science, and open source. So that might come as a surprise to some of you, but that's some of the tenets that we like to put out there because we want to actually facilitate time to discovery, and that's how we believe that we're going to do that. There are 5 different areas that we like to fund and work in and advance technology in. Core computer science, that's exactly what our lab is. It's accelerating the work that we do inside of our lab. Earth, energy, and environment is a lot about ecological data and climate change and how we can facilitate scientists to address the issues that we're facing. Natural user interface, which is what I'm in presently, although I've actually been in 3 of these and maybe shortly moving to a 4th. Health and well-being, which is actually what my research area is. I'm a clinical associate faculty at the University of Washington. So my own research is in global public health, and I feel very strongly about the democratization of medicine. A lot of my talk will be in that space because that's a lot of the projects that I've done are in that area. And then lastly, education and scholarly communication. And I think right now, education is something that we all know inside this country needs to be addressed. So you're probably asking yourself, how is computer science research really going to affect my life? Like, how is this going to benefit me? Well, the thing is that there are things that I'm going to show you that I hope you'll take away that the type of research that we're doing that might be surprising to you is that we're trying to build a better, safer, healthier future for ourselves and for our world. So I'll start with a project. Now, you notice the 5 icons that I had up here before. You'll see them kind of show up here along the left side of the screen. I guess your right side, my left side. But that's because we collaborate across the different themes, trying to accelerate, even within our group, some of the impacts that we can have. So this one hits on NUI, health and well-being, and core computer science. So imagine, you guys have probably all seen The Terminator, or at least seen reruns of The Terminator. Imagine putting a heads-up display on the top of a contact lens. So this is actually a view through a contact lens where you're seeing the letter E there. And we could get more letters across there, but we're limited right now by nanotechnology. But nanotechnology is getting better and better. So we'll be able to put more and more information on a contact lens that you wear on your eye. And while this is a cool thing, it's not really the true application of it. But let me tell you a little bit how it works. So the functional contact lens is something that we do in conjunction with the University of Washington, Babak Pavarez, who's there, and one of our internal researchers, Desni Tan. The lens itself sits on your eye, and as long as your eye is open, these lights are more than enough to power it through radio frequency interference. It can actually pick up that power, do a sensor of your body's state, and then even has a radio to transmit out information, as well as to display LEDs, like you saw with the E. But this can become very important for healthcare, continuous monitoring of healthcare. So what would you think a diabetic would think if they never, ever had to do this again? So anything that can be measured pretty much in the blood can also be measured in the tears. Blood glucose is something that we've already started doing the testing on with the functional contact lens. And as soon as you run into a space where you actually need to take some action, the lens itself can tell you the action that you need to take. It's something that's currently going out for FDA approval right now. So in this picture, I want you to kind of guess, what is the dirtiest thing you think that's in this picture? And my husband's a doctor, and there are a few things that he said that I can't repeat. But there is something that is repeatable that is in this, and there's no surprise probably about what it is. It's the keyboard. So in every surgical theater, there is a keyboard. And they're there because doctors need to interact with digital images of the patient on the table, whether that's CAT scans or MRIs. That's what actually they need to be able to interact with. And so one of the things that they need to do is they need to go to the keyboard and pull these things up or ask somebody else in there. What happens to their hands? Their hands become non-sterile. And so what we want to do is we want to enable sterile conditions in surgical theaters. And so through a collaboration that we're doing with Edinburgh Hospital, Lancaster University, and our Microsoft Research Cambridge group, is we're actually enabling doctors to be able to interact directly with these digital images by gesturing in the air using Connect. So, you know, we have a lot of different metrics where we measure the success of projects, but this really truly is the first one that I know of where we're monitoring better healthcare outcomes, fewer staph infections, lives saved. So that's how we're actually going to be managing, you know, as this project goes on, we're actually going to be measuring its success. The metrics for it are to be able to measure those particular values. So one of the things that's lately come up is, you know, machine learning is one of the most hot topics right now. And it's one of those things that can really, truly change our lives, particularly in the space of vaccine development. I think there's no one here who wouldn't agree with me that AIDS is an epidemic. But I'm not sure if you know what the numbers are. Every year, 1.8 million people die of AIDS. And if you do the math, that's 5,000 people every single day. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to see if we could bring computer science, and in particular machine learning, to bear on the problem. And the thing that we used is a very surprising technology. So we developed a spam filter, and if you think about the way spam evolves inside of your mailbox, well, HIV has a very similar thing that it evolves when it enters into the human body. And so we identified the weak points and do better spam filtering using our spam filter, but also discovered that it could be reused in a way to determine what are the weak spots in HIV. So what we can do is literally locate their Achilles heel and go after them to develop a vaccine that would render it harmless. So the tool that we've developed is called PhyloD. It's available open source. Anyone can download it. There are dozens of HIV researchers using this in addition to our lab, although we're working very closely with Bruce Walker at Harvard University on this. And the man who developed that spam filter is David Heckerman. We've published dozens of papers on it, but I think the most important thing that I want to tell you today is that a breakthrough is imminent. So the other big topic right now, President Obama is talking about big data. Everyone's talking about big data and how we handle big data. But one of the biggest problems about facilitating time to discovery is how do you visualize that? How do you glean information from that? And so what we decided to do to facilitate time to discovery was develop visualization tools that would help scientists do that type of capability, give them the power to be able to see how different data sets interact with one another and visualize that in a very compelling way. So the first project that we worked in this space was actually something that we announced in TED 2008. That's the Worldwide Telescope. So for those of you who don't know, this is a freely available service. A lot of the astronomical data that's out there, NASA, the Sloan Sky Server, all of this information is actually uploaded into there and is accessible so that citizens can help aid astronomers in scientific discovery. We call them citizen scientists. And we've already made some very interesting and compelling discoveries by just teachers, high school teachers, going out there looking at the data. There's just not enough eyes in the world for all the data that's coming in, so now we're turning it over to the public to help make scientific discovery. We thought, well, let's take that a step further. Let's develop a world mode. And that's the first thing that we did, where we wanted to enable people to be able to take their data and apply it over the top of the world. But more importantly, what we wanted to do is have them be able to lay disparate types of data sets that had a temporal aspect to them, so that they could literally be played out like movies. But to be able to see how things interacted with one another and be able to make the kind of discoveries to determine why there's an extinction at a certain point. So we developed something called Layerscape. And this system actually allows scientists to put all kinds of disparate information on it. We're actually working with the USGS service in Arizona on earthquake data. So trying to understand how earthquakes take place and how there's a timely factor to that. But more importantly, we're also looking at things like the recession of a snowpack. What are the atmospheric conditions? What's the temperature of the ocean over time? And being able to play those in tours and make them available on the website, so we can not only help scientists, but we can also help educate the public about climate change. Another one of our tools that we're developing that enables visualization is ChronoZoom. And ChronoZoom is something that allows you to zoom very quickly through time. So if you think about time, this is all of time. I have a long reach, but, but if I reach out my hands and I say, this is the beginning of time until now, if I were to file my nails, human history would disappear off of it. So how do you zoom very quickly from all of time to human history? So let's start with human history. This is just human history. And if you look, there's a key up here that shows you can just click on that very quickly and you can zoom to human history. Obviously, that graph's not to scale, because that's why I wanted to give you the impression from my reach. But we can zoom very quickly from human history all the way out to all of history. And then each of these bubbles that you see is actually detailed, media-rich information that tells us about each one of those the items that you see on there. For instance, we can learn a whole lot more about the Big Bang just by clicking on one of those circles. So this is a great education tool as well. But it also helps us understand our history and how things happened. Like, for instance, the extinction of the dinosaurs was something that Walter Alvarez, who's one of our collaborators, used ChronoZoom to illustrate inside of this tool. And the last thing I'm going to talk to you about is something that's very near and dear to my heart. I think that John Rustin Saul said it best, that the ultimate form of ruining freedom of expression is to the loss of a language. There are over 7,000 languages in the world that are spoken today. That's what scientists tell us. And the UN says that every 14 days, one of them goes extinct. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to make sure that we helped out keeping languages that are vibrant. There are about 100 of these languages that are automatically translated today, and they're generally translated for commercial reasons. What we want to do is facilitate that to happen for language communities so that they don't lose their culture, lose their language. I was recently in Nepal. We were out in the middle of nowhere in Dhulakel, and there were children playing out in the field, soccer, football. And what do you think these children were? I mean, they ranged in age from about 3 or 4 all the way up to about 15. And they were shouting to each other in English. The reason is because their families believe that they'll have a better chance in life if they speak one of the major languages rather than Nepalese. And when we got to Kathmandu University and started working with the students there, many of them told us that they are not fluent in Nepali. It was completely shocking to me. But even not in our country, we're seeing this attrition of languages. And when we lose those things, we lose those cultures. So this person is a Pong Yang. Oh, there we go. Pong is a Hmong community leader and also a professor at the California State University at Fresno. He was displaced from Laos during the Vietnam War. They sided with the United States government. They relocated them to France. That's one of the other large areas where Hmong congregate, as well as in Australia and in the United States. His family later migrated to the US, and what they wanted to do is really integrate into our society. But the problem is that with every elder dying, they watched their culture starting to perish. And so what we wanted to do was provide them with a tool that would enable them to keep their language vibrant. And I'll come to that. The good news, I'll start out with the good news before I talk to you about the tool, is that on International Mother Language Day, we released Hmong as an automatically translated language, and it was completely community crowdsourced. It was something that we did not get in the way of. We facilitated it, and we created a tool to help them and other language communities work to preserve their languages. Language is a living thing. It changes over time. So you have to give that tool over to the different communities. You can't let a big company stand in the way of the development of those types of tools. So we developed something called the Microsoft Translator Hub that would enable any language community, any language preservationist, or even businesses themselves who want to do very domain-specific models, be able to create their own custom, private translation system that's accessible from anywhere. It actually runs as a web service and is accessible from anywhere in the world. And these folks can literally go in, add their data, invite their community to improve that data. When they feel confident, when they want it to ship, then they can approach us and we can ship it inside of our own translator system commercially. But that's up to the community. Or they continue to use it in private. That's an option for them as well. And so we're really literally working in this particular space to empower this community and other communities to save their languages, to keep them vibrant, and to protect their culture. So, in conclusion, I'd like to leave you with my own personal motto. I don't think I coined this, but it is one that's very important to me. And it's one I would ask of you as well. Always be a force for good in the world. Be part of the solution. And what I don't say is, don't be part of the problem. Thank you very much for your attention.